Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey chapter
447.
and it is the fourth day of the week, aka the Buster Cannon workout, but it's not today. It's the Special Beam Cannon workout today. That's because my knees have been a little funky, so I've been taking a few lower body days off, but now I think we're back, so hopefully this workout will go well. But anyway, to the main subject matter for today, doing it for the love of money. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss this is because in a previous episode right here, I talk about doing it for the love of the game, and though that can be noble and not necessarily the end-all be-all, but still something that is a striving for a passion that most people just are absent of. I think that that is something a lot more fewer and far than between than anything else, trying to become the best that you can for your own reasons. But nowadays, it seems as though doing it for the love of money is the overtaking thing. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, fuck you if you're doing it for money, of course. Because at this point, at how things are going with society, you just do whatever you can at this point. With some caveats, of course. You don't want to help ruin the ruination of society, because that would seem like a terrible idea. But still, it's just, if you take a sponsorship, if you're a YouTuber, you know what I mean? Or just do whatever. But this comes in many different facets and areas that makes it so that doing it for the love of money, you end up becoming a different person in a certain sense, a person that you can tell is for the money. And when people kind of understand that or see it for what it is, it becomes that much harder in order to sell certain things. It's like as if, for example, a lot of things that come into question when something like that happens, like their integrity, what are they doing? Like, are they just doing it for the money? Is there really something behind it? Or is it just the ability to make the most bang for your buck for whatever it is, And there's all sorts of examples for this. I mean, you can look at the crypto world, we can look at the advertisement world, the sponsorship world, stabbing people in the back type of thing, that type of stuff, using others in order to get themselves a little bit better and all this other stuff. Because I think that this one is a little bit more encompassing of a person that isn't not necessarily good. Now, of course, there can be people who do it for the love of money for a reason or another that are more, let's say, more benevolent than somebody who might not be. But also at the same time, that is one, rare, and two, realistically, if you're doing it for money, if your end goal is money, why? There's a little bit of an association there, particularly with certain groups being very money hungry and how they can be seen not caring about many people, more, groups of people, because it doesn't necessarily matter. As long as the bottom dollar goes up, they don't give a fuck, So there is a certain level of evil that goes along with it. Not to say everybody who's in it for the money is evil, but at the same time, how many times do we know people that have a job that they fucking hate no matter what, but they're only doing it because it pays so much, So there is a certain level of almost self-disgust in something like that. You're whoring yourself out to the highest bidder in a certain sense. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at that, particularly just all of the things that go into it when doing something for the love of money, because it is a truly different experience than something like doing something for a passion when it's for yourself rather than for a monetary purpose. Because I think that it's a means to an end that only leads to evil and corruption. And that's the thing. So, today's episode, we're going to be looking at that and a few other things. But we get to Mother Base.
All right, so started this day off with squats, which were pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. Doing it for the love of money. The main reason why I want to discuss this is because it's the inverse of doing it for the love of the game. And it seems appropriate as it is something that now how everything is getting worse and worse when it comes to money, it is more and more viable that people are going to start doing things that are questionable at best to get by, really. And it kind of sucks because it's going to make people do things that are probably regrettable. The thing about it is that a lot of people are willing to sell their souls for money. They're willing to do anything for the dollar, and that includes selling the soul. One day we will discuss that in depth in its own episode, because I do believe that people sell it for much less and betray themselves for absolutely nothing. And it is a sad sight to see, because people will do this quite frequently without even trying. But that's a different episode nonetheless. I think that it's understandable in a certain sense to sell the soul or to try to make as much money as humanly possible, doing it for the love of money, because at a certain point we have gotten conditioned, unfortunately, in the realities of this world that we're living in currently, that money does make the world go round and is a very important commodity. Unfortunately, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the most important thing personally, but I understand why people go throughout their life needing it consistently, as it is something that we have considered the meta game for society now. It is very unfortunate that we have to do that and have to idolize money and make it so that we have to go for it. But the people who end up doing this, in theory, or people who idolize it and try to doing it for that love for money, should in theory be shamed for doing it, because realistically, more of the times than not, it is done in a malevolent way, where they are doing things where they are trying to get and increase any single type of dollar that they can humanly possible and squeeze as much profit as they can in order to line their pockets, when other people will suffer from it, or people will get lower quality versions of things, or just a whole bunch of stuff like that. It's kind of disgusting, because for some reason the idea of staying stagnant with these types of things is just not even allowed. You have to increase shareholder profit at all costs, and it makes it so that it becomes an evil act. And that's why it's very annoying to have to deal with it, because I don't necessarily hate money inherently. I understand its importance. I do believe that money is something that is an important thing, a part of society. But at the same time, I think that when people get this weird obsession over it, or a confounding nature where they have to put it on a pedestal where there is no amount that's enough, then it gets to the point where, what are you willing to do? And a lot of the people who are willing to do it are willing to sell their souls for it as well. People will go down a rabbit hole where they are the love for money, where for some reason, instead of pursuing a passion or having any passion or the world out there, they're just there to work the meta game of making as much money as you can and then moving on, never really actually trying to do anything else with their life. It's one of those things that people will go down rabbit holes of shilling out different things that don't really work, or becoming snake oil salesmen. The fitness industry is known for this type of stuff, and it's the worst in this industry, because there's so many scammers and people that are ready to scam anybody out of any single penny that they possibly can, because of course they're going to want to try to do it. And as well, it speaks to the greed that some people never really get over. I think that greed is one of those things that in theory you should probably grow out of, but also at the same time understandable why you wouldn't, especially depending on your situation. That's why I'm not necessarily against it, but I understand that it can corrupt relatively easily, and I think a lot of people forget that corruption that can happen from the love of money, and making it so that everything else becomes the side work. And when that happens, you end up missing out on a lot of other things that could make your life more successful and more fulfilling. I don't think many people who pass from this world are thinking at the very end, man, I'm glad I made all of that money, rather than, man, I'm glad I spent all that time doing something I actually cared about.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped. We have one, calves, because I don't have time. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. Doing it for the love of money. So the main reason why I want to discuss this is because, of course, this isn't necessarily this happens quite a bit, honestly, in today's society, as the want of wealth and greed is pushed upon us, especially by people that are in a upper echelon of when it comes to money. It's the divide and gap between the lower class citizen and the higher class citizen is getting steeper and steeper, to the point where things are probably going to get fucked. But we will have to wait and see about that. But the wage disparagement and the gaps ever so growing, make it so that everybody at the bottom is in the pursuit for the almighty dollar. And obviously, I think a lot of people always forget that greed is a sin, and thus they end up just kind of forgetting about it and putting it in the backside, understandably so, as we don't really, the money unfortunately still makes the world go round, so it is something that we need to kind of get in order to survive here. But even then, you don't necessarily need it per se. You're kind of in a weird roundabout loop if you don't decide to go for the pursuit of money, in which case you could just suck the teat of the government forever, really, and claim, but you are kind of stuck in that cycle of forever poverty, because why am I going to claim that I'm making a X amount of money if if I can just pretend I'm not, or just don't, and all of a sudden everything's getting taken care of, So it just makes the entire system a little funky, but that's just a different story for a different day. I think this is more just the pursuit of money and what it does to people. Because I think that ultimately, I think you can see this all around, that most of the time, the pursuit of money usually corrupts the person. They end up becoming what is essentially either a former shell of themselves or someone completely different. Somebody who is a snake, somebody who is untrustworthy, a disgusting human being that you can never really understand why they are like that until you find out what they are actually about, which is the money. And then thus that explains everything. You can dismiss them as a person because you instantly know, because I think that this is an archetype that has happened through many a century, that you understand that, oh, you're just in it for the money. You don't really necessarily care. Congratulations. I don't care about you. And I think that a lot of the time people like to try to hide it, or at least minimize it as much as they can, because obviously you want to try to. Even I have to go work a job. It's something that I would like to do, but I understand that money is just a stepping stone for more goals. There are people that just keep wanting it over and over and over again to just continue on, and what money can represent, which can be power, which is an interesting dynamic, but that's a different story. I think that just the pursuit of just for pure money and profit is quite frankly disgusting, and people who are doing it to that degree where it is nothing but a blind, I don't care, give it to me now and I'll do anything for it, terrible track to go down. And I don't think anybody that is at the end of it is a good person, really. It's very rare where you'll find them. It doesn't even matter. There are religious people that can say they're doing it for religious purposes, but at the end of the day, they're still living in their $1 million mansion while giving nothing to the homeless. You know what I mean? There are levels to it. So it's not even there's levels to it depending on what the end goal is, but at the end of the day, if it's just money, then there you go. There's the corruption, really. So it's a very interesting dynamic. Now, to say that there aren't certain people that are in it for the money for good reasons, of course there are, but those are such few and far between that it doesn't even seem like it. You never really hear about these people that exist that are philanthropists all of a sudden, philanthropists, billionaires that actually have good purpose, right? Nobody hears about that because it probably doesn't exist. But maybe there's one. Who knows? I could be wrong, but I highly doubt it. And I think a lot of people could agree that you probably haven't heard of it either. So it's just one of those things that you understand inherently that at a certain point, enough is enough, or what are you doing? What is the point afterwards, And yeah, and I think it's just generally something that it's not good to necessarily teach on to the next generation, really, because once they understand that, yes, money makes the world go round, but it isn't the only thing, is probably the best route to take, because if they are in the pursuit of the almighty dollar, they're willing to sell basically themselves or their soul or whatever to the highest bidder, or even sometimes the lowest bidder, but the bidder that will bid more often, and then thus they could just essentially become what is quintessentially a whore. And I think everybody understands the rungs of that as well, and the consequences that come with that label and everything else along with it. And nobody really wants to be labeled a whore nowadays, but it is what it is. It's what we all are in a weird way. But anyways, with that being said, tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. Very excited that I got this one out because I've been thinking about this one for a little bit. But please let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy. Stay safe out there and stay warm. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.